Hey y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 71. This is the first and the only podcast dedicated to all things night vision, thermal imaging, night hunting. If it's got to do with a night vision scope, a thermal scope, or doing hunting stuff in the dark, then Hans and I are going to talk about it on this show. And I already mentioned him, Hans, my co-host, my partner in crime. Welcome to the show. How are you tonight, Hans?
Hey, man, I'm really good. You know, you're talking about doing stuff in the night. I'm glad that you clarified that. I didn't know where you were going with that.
I was hoping we could just skip past that. You would not catch that. Do we need to do a retake? Do we need to start over?
No retakes. No retakes.
No
We've already got our one
on this
retake.
show. That's right.
So, no, everything's great, man. I tell you what, it's kind of an interesting time of year. Hogs are moving really a lot right now. You know, you talk here recently about all the hogs that you got popping up on camera. Mine is the same way. My phone's probably going to be buzzing right out of my pocket. We may have to cut the show so I can go shoot a hog real quick because I got one that's been showing up at the house. But we've got some interesting news, some good stuff to talk about. Also, stay tuned for the end of the show because something exciting happened to me last week. But if you're watching right now on YouTube, you're wondering why Hans may be wearing a long sleeve shirt. It is because, yes, I've got poison ivy again.
Again?
Again, I've got poison ivy again. The first time I had it this summer was a month ago or so ago, and It was awful. I mean, it was absolutely awful. Hopefully I've caught it early. I've got it on one arm right now. I'm taking ice cold showers. I'm not messing around with taking scalding hot showers because that's kind of ruined me last time. But yes, you're wondering why I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. It's because I've got poison ivy. So
I'm going to tell you something. I don't even want to knock. I'm going to knock on wood right now. I mean, I haven't had it bad in a long time. I used to get it terribly like you're talking about. But the last time you had it, we went hunting together one night when you were like that. And I mean, you had it for like a month. It was the longest case I've ever heard of.
Miserable, absolutely miserable. I know that everybody doesn't want to hear about my case of poison ivy. I think I already said it, but
I think you should probably just stop there.
I had it everywhere.
Where this is going.
I had it everywhere, and y'all don't need to read between the lines on that. But you can probably tell I had a month of no sleep. Let me just tell you that.
Golly. Oh, my goodness. There's so many things I could say, but we need to move along because
all the guys out there know what I'm talking about.
It's gonna devolve because there's so many things I'm wanting to say right now. So This is a family show. All right, moving along. I do want to talk about a lot of stuff. There is a lot of news. We've got some fun stuff to talk about. We've got some hog stuff to talk about. If there's time later in the show, we've got some. I don't know what I don't want to give it away. We got some accessory stuff that Hans has gotten recently. We've got some good news I'm fixing to talk about. We've got some bad news is going to be the main topic. First thing I want to mention is that I have been inundated. I think that's the right word. It sounds good. Inundated. I can't spell it.
That's a 25-cent word.
I know. I can't spell it, but we've had a whole bunch of requests recently for us to do a review on the podcast of the Pulsar DigiSight N450 or the 455. That is a $1,300, $1,299 digital night vision scope. And we're going to get into it a lot more. It's something that, to be honest with you, Hans and I have kind of been ignoring just because it is pretty darn expensive. And, you know, the Wraith has been getting all the fanfare because of the price, the Sightmark Wraith. But I have had since Friday, I guess in the last 3 or 4 days, I have had 5 requests directly that said, please do a review of this. So I talked to my Pulsar rep and I said, man, shoot us over a couple of those things. Sell me a couple and we're going to go test them in the field. And so it may be just a few weeks because we do have to get them. I think they're in stock over at Pulsar. So I'm going to check on that to be sure. And then we'll get them and check them out in the field, and then we'll do a review. So that's something to be looking forward to in the next, may take us a few weeks. So give us a little bit on it, but as soon as we get out in the field and feel like we know a little bit about them, can compare them to the Wraith, what have you, we will definitely be doing a review on the Pulsar DigiSights N450, and we'll talk about the difference in the 450 and the 455. So with that said, I want to go ahead and intro the main topic of the show. And this is something that if you're on social media, you probably read about last week, or maybe at least saw some discussion of it. I saw it was all over every single hog hunting group on Facebook, a lot of non hog hunting groups, just hunting related, Second Amendment related, and Instagram, a lot of other social media places. There is a story that Forbes magazine, they broke this story that the DOJ is requesting to Google and Apple, because they own the app stores where people can download apps for their phones and tablets and what have you. They're requesting all of the user data. And my understanding, and Hans, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they want the IP address, phone number, email, and maybe anything else they've got. I think it's name, phone number, email, IP address of everyone who has downloaded the ATN Obsidian app. And that app is, for those that don't know, the ATN sites, whether it's the X sites or their thermal scopes, the Thors, they all most all of them will connect to this app to stream, to do different things in the scope, control different settings, that sort of thing. But again, live stream to it. And the DOJ believes that these, I mean, I don't want to give away this whole thing. I know Hans has got a bunch to read, but my understanding is that the DOJ believes there has been some, exportation of these scopes, some laws broken, and they're trying to figure out who is using this app to control their scope in other countries outside the U.S. And so is that a decent primer? Because I mean, I know Hans he's read a bunch of stuff and printed a bunch of stuff off. Is that pretty good intro of what that is?
Yeah, we're ready to go home. End of the show.
All right, good. See y'all later.
No, so you're right, Jason. There's a lot of man. There's been so many people. This was brought to my attention when the news broke by a buddy of mine that sent me the article right away. I read it. You and I talked about it, and then it just exploded on social media. So I do have the original article from Forbes magazine. I do want to read some excerpts from it, just so. For those of y'all that don't know about what's going on, really kind of get you up to date, how it affects the industry, how it affects all of the end users, us as owners of these types of optics, and where do we go from here? And really, Jason is going to give us the dealer perspective, because there are some regulations, very strict regulations on how dealers approach the sale of the night vision and thermal optics.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I want to real quick just say one thing, just to be upfront, because I know that a lot of people that are fans of the show already know this. There may be some people this is your first time watching. Full disclosure, I am a dealer. However, at this point, about for the last probably 3 or 4 years, I have not sold ATN scopes. For intentional reasons. We've discussed that on some of the other shows. Hans and I currently aren't using ATN scopes. So, I mean, I'm not saying that like because there's some, what we're worried we're going to be implicated in this. I mean, as far as I know, we hadn't left Texas. But I just want to be clear, just up front, that we're not using this app. And I mean, not that it matters if you are. I just want to say we do know about these scopes. We know about the app. And so we're going to talk about it though. And we'll give it from, a user perspective, the constitutional issue is a big deal I want to talk about. So go right ahead, Hans.
Yeah, so like Jason said, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is the one that's requiring or basically asking a federal judge or asking Google and Apple for permission to have the user information. So basically the article starts out, which was surprising to me, Jason. Never before has a case been disclosed in which American investigators demanded personal data of users of a single app from Apple or Google, and never has ordered made public where the feds have asked Silicon Valley giants for more info on so many thousands of people in one go. That to me alone was very surprising. First of all, that the Department of Justice, American investigators have never asked a American company for so much data at one time, and never has it been made public. So what does I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to look into that. Maybe too much.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
Is it? You never know, because there's stuff like this doesn't happen on accident. You know, a lot of these things seem like maybe breadcrumbs, or maybe bigger than breadcrumbs. Yeah. But why would they make that information public, like that they are going and they're asking for information? Is it
to scare somebody?
Yeah. So that's where I'm going with it. Is it to make people nervous or concerned, or to make people, Jason, like you, that are on the dealer side, more aware of how they're doing business and who they're doing business with?
It could be. Yeah. I mean, that's a very good question. And I know later in the show, I want to talk a little bit more about it from a dealer perspective, but I don't know. I'm with you. This is one of those things where it's odd to me that it was made public in the way that it was. And so, I don't know what's going on there. I also want to know, and I've seen this, I've read a bunch of comments tonight before the show. I was doing some research, and there's a bunch of people that have basically, news outlets that have regurgitated this article or put a little spin on it and just republished it. And a lot of those, I mean, they were talking about all kinds of non-hunting industry related companies, news sites. And I was reading some of the comments, and I mean, these are from what I would say we would call the mainstream liberal media. And reading the comments surprised me in a good way, that the vast majority of people, there was a lot of comments of, I hate guns, blah, 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 but this is unconstitutional. They should not be asking for this much information. And so it was a little heartwarming to me to see people that are admitted anti-Second Amendment, don't like guns, but saying, hey, smart enough to say this could be us next time in another app,
So there are implications that we'll talk about later that could lead into some concerning things. But to go on, according to the application for court order filed by the Department of Justice, investigators want information on, like you said, users of the Obsidian 4, a tool that's used by the Rifle Scope Night Vision Specialist American Technologies Network Company Corporation.
That's ATN.
ATN, for all of you that didn't know. And the app allows, and we're all familiar with this, what the apps do. If you own a Pulsar or anything like this, the app allows gun owners to live stream, take video, calibrate scopes for their Apple or iPhone device. Right now it says that Google has about 10,000 downloads, so 10,000, I guess, unique users.
I think it says 10,000 plus. I think that's, I did a little research on that. I think when they get to 10,000, the Google Play Store says 10,000 plus. So I think it's probably a bunch. Yeah.
10,000 plus, and they said iPhone does not keep records or share records on that kind of information. But, going on, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department is seeking information as part of a broad investigation into possible breaches of weapons export regulations. And it's looking into illegal exports of ATN scopes, though the company itself isn't under investigation, according to the order. As a part of that, investigators are looking for a quick way to find out where the app is in use, as that will likely indicate where the hardware has been shipped. ICE has repeatedly intercepted illegal shipments of the scopes, which is controlled under the International Traffic in Arms Regulation, otherwise known as ITAR, which a lot of us in the industry are familiar with. And according to the government court filing, they included shipments to Canada, the Netherlands, and Hong Kong, where the necessary licenses hadn't been obtained. So really, I mean, in a nutshell, that can tell you, I mean, plain and simple, they are, by tracking through the app, they're trying to find out, through user information, IP addresses, they can find out where these, let's just say this, they can find out where the apps are being used. And that's a little bit of the concern.
This is this is where this gets all mixed up for me. So let's just say, that Apple and hang on, before I even go into that, let's be clear. So far as we know, Apple and Google have said no, correct? They're not without some kind of court order. Yeah. They're not giving up this information. Is that correct?
In the article, it didn't say yes or no. It didn't say say that Google or iPhone said no. It
iPhone,
does.
Apple, not Apple.
iPhone, yeah, Apple,
Apple.
yeah. It didn't say that, but it didn't say yes or no. But the implication was that in past history that they have said no.
Okay.
But we're talking about a different animal here.
I know.
This is the gun lobby.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is this though. What I don't understand. So let's say that the DOJ, they have some reason to believe that the ITAR rules have been broken and somebody's exporting these ATN scopes. Mm-hmm. What does it do to, I'm just talking in theory, that they get all this information and they go, yep, we can see that, I'm trying not to use a name and be non-politically correct here. Some guy in Iraq is using this scope. Okay. He should not have it. He's using it and we've got his IP address. It's going to be really hard to track some guy down in a cave. Wouldn't it be easier, since they already believe this has happened, to track it down from the dealer that sold? I mean, you know what I'm getting at? Like if we got some idea that this has happened, I don't understand how tracing it backwards. They're not going to catch some guy in Iraq and torture him to say where he bought it. I don't know. It just seems like they're going about it with a weird way.
It does seem like through investigation they could pinpoint it to maybe some dealers or individuals that are illegally shipping these scopes where they're not supposed to go. This statement kind of sums up the broadness. So the request is undeniably broad and would likely include all users of the app within America, not just users abroad who might indicate illegal shipments of the gun appendage. So, I mean, it is every one of the users on Google, iPhone, anybody that has downloaded this app, your information is basically going to be record of the Department of Justice now.
If they get this, let's be clear. If we don't know that they have it yet.
Yeah, no, and we may be concerned about nothing at this point.
Well, I'm just saying, let's not say that for sure. I mean, let's hope that it doesn't happen, but it ain't looking good. The DOJ normally gets what the DOJ wants, but right.
And that goes back to the point of maybe this information being made public was to try to pressure or throw some weight against some of these iPhone, Apple, and Google to kind of pressure them into giving this. Aiding and abetting the enemy. One of the things that was spoken about, it said it's unclear just whom ICE is investigating, which I believe means dealers or individuals that are shipping these units overseas. No public charges have been filed related to the companies or sellers of the weapons tools. Reports online have claimed ATN scopes are being used by the Taliban. Now, that is unconfirmed. These are allegations. I don't know if these are proven 100%. Right. But there are videos, Jason, and you and I spoke about this. There are videos out there that looks like somebody, an enemy of the United States, using one of these ATN scopes. So whether it's real or not, we don't know. I have no idea, but that's what the implication of this article kind of leads you down.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one more thing I've had a couple people ask me in the last few days is, okay, so what about Pulsar? They're the only other company in the U.S. that have a smartphone app. Are they next? And my answer to that is I don't know, but I will tell you this. The difference in ATN and Pulsar is that ATN is an American company. Mm-hmm. Pulsar is an international company based in Lithuania and Belarus. Mm-hmm. Their app is developed overseas and distributed from overseas. Their scopes are sold internationally. They're sold all over the world. So I'm just going to say that's different. This is an American. This is an app that originates in America for a scope that is only to be used here without proper export. Pulsar is a scope that's made somewhere else, brought into here, an app that is an international app. So it would not be surprising to find their app all over the world.
Let me read part of this that kind of relates to what you're saying. Though the order is unprecedented in America, non-U.S. governments have tried similar tactic before on a grander scale. As Forbes reported, an unnamed government had asked Apple for data on 58 million users of a single app as they tried to trace a terrorist cell. Apple declined to provide the data. So, basically, a government outside the United States was requesting Apple to provide information on 58 million users of an app.
How would you even sort that?
To track down,
million,
So they did decline that. Now, you were speaking about an American company versus a non-American company. Historically, like you said, this is the first time DOJ has asked an American company to provide data from app users. But we do know that other governments have asked Apple for that information, and they were declined. So that is good. But again, it's not related to guns, and we know we kind of know how Silicon Valley's feelings on Second Amendment and guns and all that kind of stuff. Jason. Really, that's the only thing that has me nervous. Is we're when we're talking about apps and data, we're talking about a segment of the population, gun owners and gun rights are not. They're not waving gun rights on a flag outside of Apple right now.
No,
I can tell you that. Yeah.
Well,
but again, this is all speculation at this point. So.
Well, I'll speculate and go down that same rabbit hole that you're talking about. All this hubbub, Apple and Google don't want to mess with it. They're tired of it. They don't like guns anyway. This app is flying under the radar. Don't get me wrong. I know they have to review every app, but they don't. They don't know what it is. They don't have a real idea. And so, wouldn't it be the easy thing to say, "Hey, you know what? We're no longer. You can't download that app for your Apple phone. It's not in the store anymore, and we're going to take it off the Google app." And I know that Google, the Android phones, have a lot of there's multiple app stores, and I think you can get things. But what if Google just says, we're taking it off of ours, and Apple does the same thing. So we're just not going to mess with it. You're not going to download it. It's not an approved app anymore. Now, and they could do that for any of these optics. And so now what? Now you can't control your you don't have the streaming capabilities and all those things. And it's pure speculation, but.
Yeah. To end the article, and this is a last little segment I'll read. Even those who've worked in the government surveillance were stunned by the order. The idea that this data will only be used for pursuing ITAR violations is almost laughable.
Yeah.
Warned Jake Williams, a former NSA analyst and now cybersecurity consultant for Rendition InfoSec. So Google and Apple should definitely fight these requests as they represent a slippery slope. This type of bulk data grab is seriously concerning for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that the download of an application, and pay attention to this, the download of an application does not automatically imply the intended use of the application. For instance, researchers often bulk download applications looking for interesting vulnerabilities. Now, how many times have you downloaded an app that you'd never used? What about the people that download an ATN app? Yeah, download an ATN app that don't own the scope, but just to check it out to see what it looks like. So
sure. What this means is, what if you're an American citizen and you're on vacation in Egypt seeing the pyramids, and you've got an ATN scope coming when you come back, and so you download the Obsidian app while you're looking at the King Tut's tomb, and you're in Egypt, and now you're going to be on this. But really though, I know that's far fetched, but I'm just making the point. This is way too broad of a grab. To me, if the DOJ says, "Hey, we want to know, we've got something to pinpoint, and we have an IP address, or we have a name, or we have an email, or we've got a specific region we're trying to target outside of the U.S." But to me, this is spying on U.S. citizens, I just have I'm totally against it.
The question is obviously, and again, this is far from being approved by Google or Apple, and this just we might just be talking about this for nothing, but this has caused panic, and not because the people are doing things that they shouldn't for their scopes, but it's a massive data concern on privacy. But the thing, with what's going on and how it relates to you, Jason. right now, just so people know, ITAR, explain a little bit about ITAR, what you as a dealer have to look for, what you can and cannot do as it relates to selling these scopes and units, and also what does it mean for, like we spoke briefly, not just ATN, but companies like Pulsar. Is that a concern?
Sure. Well, I'll say this, and I'll go ahead and be clear on this, and it might decrease some of my email volume, but as a U.S. dealer, an authorized dealer for, well, let me back up. You don't have to be authorized. I mean, it applies to me, but it applies to anyone inside the United States. You cannot export, and export doesn't mean that you officially go down and do something. It means you can put it in your bag, put it in your truck, and drive across the border, fly across the border, mail it across the border, throw it across the border in any direction. You cannot leave the United States without, there are some exceptions. Obviously, if you do all the paperwork and you do certain things, then I'm sure that you could. The average person is not going to go through all that.
It took me 12 months to get a suppressor stamp. I can't imagine how long it would take to get that.
To haul your thermal with you. No. So with that said, you don't leave the country with them. You don't send them to anybody outside the country. That obviously is a huge liability for us as dealers. But the same liability, carries to anybody. If Joe Schmo has a thermal scope or a night vision scope and, he sells it to some random person, it's just like selling a gun. So you can't knowingly do it. Now, if you have no indication, no idea that a guy's going to buy it and haul it out of the country in 6 months, I mean, obviously that's not your fault. No different than if you sell a gun and a guy's going to, commit a crime with it, as long as you don't know or have any idea. And so I get requests almost every single day, sometimes multiples. I mean, it adds up to 10 or 15 minimum a week, every week, for people asking me to ship them a scope outside of the U.S. Now, the vast majority of the time, these guys are in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, other European countries where it is legal for them to own them, and they can actually buy the scopes there a lot of times. But they go, maybe they don't have dealers that know much about them. Maybe, and I don't understand this because I don't know all the exchange rates. Sometimes they say it's cheaper for them to buy them here, our dollar, and the way it all works, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. I can't ship to them. And so my answer every single time is, I'm sorry, it's against U.S. federal law for me to ship one of these outside the United States. Can't help you. And that's it, period. There's nothing we can do about it. And I suspect that there's probably some guys in this industry, and I'm not like naming, I don't know anybody. I don't even have anybody in mind. But what I think is, there's probably some guys, and I would imagine even some smaller guys who maybe are part-timers, and they can turn a blind eye and maybe ship something because, these guys are willing to pay. They want them. And again, I'm not saying this is the Taliban. And by the way, I have had requests from people to purchase scopes that are absolutely, no question in my mind, terrorist. I don't want to get into the whole story on here, but no question in my mind. And yeah. So anyway, with that, I'm going to take this a step further and it's kind of talking about if you have any reasonable suspicion. I reserve the right to not sell a night vision or thermal scope to anybody that I don't want to for any reason. And that real reason is if I have any inkling that you're going to take it out of the country. And I've had guys that say, oh man, yeah, I'm going to take this thing down to Mexico. And I'm like, nope, sorry, can't help you. Oh, what? Or I'm going hunting in Canada. Nope. I mean, I'm out. I'm sorry. And then they go, oh, well, I won't take it. I'm done. I'm not, it's just not taking that chance. It's just not, I have this, you have mentioned it. And I mean, in a serious way, I'm out, Now, if we're having the conversation and you're like, hey, can I take this thing to Canada? No. Okay. You going to take it to Canada? No. I mean, you know what I'm getting at? But if I have any suspicion, I'm done. And I tell you what I think is also another real possibility is that, and a dealer could, accidentally get involved in this, is that he's selling to somebody in California, New York, New Jersey, somewhere where they're buying them, and this third party, he has no idea who he's selling it to, and this third party takes it and then ships it over. They're basically a middleman, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of that happening, and that wouldn't be the dealer's fault at that point. But we do our due diligence, and all the guys that I'm friends with in this industry, I know several of the other big dealers in Texas, and none of us have any desire to sell a scope outside the country because we know what the repercussions are, and we don't want them getting in the hands of somebody else. So it is something that is in the back of my mind on, almost every phone call that I take, every email is, I want to know where this guy's at, what he's going to do with it. And I'm not getting involved in helping you get one out of the country. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
So, and I was going to say that, a lot of guys that I talk to that are just end users and say, hey, I want to sell this scope. Can I legally sell it? And what do I need to be careful of? And again, it's just like selling a gun. Look, you can go buy thermal scopes on Amazon. All right, don't. Yeah. Anybody that buys a thermal scope on Amazon is, don't do that. Go support your local dealer. But you see the point I'm making? You can buy them anywhere. You can buy them in any, whatever, Bass Pro Cabela's. You can buy these things. So it's not like it's some big deal. Just don't sell it to anybody that you even have any suspicion might take it out of the country, and you should be good.
Well, I was going to say, related to that is, think of the booming and growing by the day online used thermal market. Where you're posting it online and selling and shipping to people you don't know. There's transactions being made all the time that way. And, at that point, the responsibility, similar, I guess, the way you sell a gun is responsibilities on the person selling it, that that, this isn't ending up in the wrong hands.
Yeah, and use common sense. I had a guy who I have no doubt is anything but a law-abiding citizen, and he was in, I don't remember what country, somewhere in Europe. This was about 3 weeks ago, and he found us on this podcast. He called, and I was, out of the office. My office manager said, he's out. And he goes, well, I really don't remember what country, somewhere in Europe. And she said, well, he's out, and, we can't call you back in Europe. Sorry, I can't, don't have international calling. The guy called 2 or 3 times trying to catch me. She's like, you're not going to catch him. You're going to have to email him. We can't sell to you. I'm not sure what you need. Because he told her and he was like, well, I have some questions, whatever. And she's like, well, I don't know if he can help you, and we sure can't sell to you. Well, he did email me, and a nice guy. And I told him, hey, I can't sell to you, can't help you. And he says, and again, hey, who knows? This guy could have been, the terrorist, but I don't think so. But he says, I've got a friend in, I think he said California. I'll have him purchase it. And I said, nope, can't help you there. And I said, well, he could ship it to me. Nope, can't help you. I'm sorry. Yeah. End of conversation. So he emails me a third time and he says, I'm coming to the United States. I'll just buy it then. Nope. Not from me. And now, that can happen. Okay. Oh, yeah. The guy can be in the U.S. He can buy one. He can walk into any store. He can pick one up. He throws it in his bag. And if he gets out of the country with it, I'm sure that kind of stuff is happening. Mm-hmm. But my advice is just like selling a gun, be careful and you're good. Yeah. Cover your tracks.
So,
wait a minute. Cover your tracks. That is not what I meant. Cover your bases. That's what I meant. Not your tracks. Your bases. Cover your bases. And
that went completely over. That completely went way over my head, and I didn't catch it until you.
Yeah, I didn't. I was like, oh no, don't do that.
Yeah, don't cover your tracks. So rarely do we get news like this, especially related to night vision and thermal scopes that make national news like it has done and just caught fire on social media with concerned people. Jason, like you and I, first thing we did was talked about it and, what are the implications of this moving forward related to not just ATN, but Pulsar, any night vision or thermal manufacturers that have these apps that are related to the scopes. But moving on from that, so if you're concerned, you have questions about it, please let us know. Please email us at thelatenightvision@gmail.com. If you're interested in purchasing, and you live in the United States and you're not going anywhere outside
you're
the
not
country,
there's
you're
no
not gonna
reason
send it,
that you can't own one of these scopes legally.
and you're not the Taliban, and you live here and you're going to be here, give Jason a call at 877-350-1818, or you can check out all the gear on outdoorlegacygear.com. You can definitely buy your scopes there online too. So in other related, well, maybe not related, but in other news, good news, after a 12-month long wait, I finally got the call that my suppressor is out of jail. And what I said on social media, on Instagram, as I said, it was a 12-month long bitter custody battle. But my ATF finally gave me full custody of my suppressor. And I'm going to tell you, I went with the Dead Air Sandman TI. Now you've got one too, and I bought it based on your recommendation. Now,
Oh boy,
you've got another one coming too. What do you have coming?
I've got a Sandman TI and I've got an Omega. It's the Silencer Omega 300, and then I have another Omega 300 on the way.
Man,
Well, I know it's kind of boring. I wanted to get something different, but I'm all about direct thread, short, and the Omega and the Sandman are just they're great. I mean, look, and I don't fancy myself as the expert on all things cans, but they're two of the most popular suppressors for a long time. And I talked to a lot of people, and everybody seems to like them. And I got the Omega. I love it, so I got another one coming, and it's nice to have. When I'm one of those guys that, man, and I know there's a couple of buddies that'll probably listen to this. When I said I was going to buy one, I was like, everybody said, well, you go ahead and buy two. You're going to want two. Just go ahead. I was like, oh, I'm going to get one. I'll never need two. I only shoot one gun at one time. Why would I ever want two? And I got one, and within 6 weeks, I was like, I need another one. I've started changing it from this rifle to that rifle. And if somebody wants to go with you and they don't have a can, then you don't need a can because you're still wearing hearing protection. And so I was like, we might as well. And that's what y'all did. Y'all got two, didn't you?
Yeah, we got two. So, not to, give Dead Air or anybody else any, ringing endorsement or anything. I mean, they're not that. Jason and I paid full price for ours, so
exactly.
I like the Dead Air a lot. I think it's. I'm with you. I like the direct thread, and it's great. It's quiet.
It is. It is.
Been shooting a bunch of hogs with it, and they like it. The hogs don't have to wear ear protection, or their ears aren't ringing too much from the noise, at least.
Well, we are concerned about the hearing of the hogs.
But I imagine at some time in a future episode we'll have some more suppressor talk. We'll talk about maybe compare and contrast the Dead Air from the Silencer Co. and see which one maybe you and I'll swap out and test it next time we're together and see which one we like better.
Exactly.
But also, Jason, you've got some news on the Wraiths, on the Sightmark Wraiths, which I still get calls and asked about all the time. They want to know, when is it going to be here? The wait has been, seems like a long time, but it's popular, man. Those scopes are super popular.
It is. The wait continues to be a long time. I've said this 10 times on the show, and I'll say it 10 more. It is by far the most popular, the most sought after, excitement, whatever you want to call it, fanfare over any night vision or thermal scope I've ever seen. The only thing that ever came close to this was when the original photons were released, the Sightmark photons, back around 2013. And I was on board for that. It was pretty darn crazy. Then in 2014, when the Photon XTs came out, again, it was nuts. We had waiting list. Nothing like this. Never seen anything like this. It's crazy. Now, there have been 2 full shipments to the U.S. so far. There is a third on the way. And the original word was, could be late August, probably September. They said early September. Now they're saying late September. It ain't here. This is the good news. This is what I'm going to tell you all that I know. And I spoke with Sightmark at length, on last week, Friday, end of the week. And the word is that they're on the way. They are on the ocean, headed this way, and they'll be here when they get here. And folks, you got to remember, they're on it. They're on the ocean, so they're not in the air. When something comes in the air, you know when that plane takes off, and you know when that plane's going to land. The ocean doesn't work exactly that way. And then you get to port, and then containers can sit on a boat for a while, then they can get offloaded, and they can see. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on there. These ports, it isn't like they're just unloading, one container. There's a lot happening there. And they've got to go through customs and all that. Then they have to get shipped here to Texas. They have to do their quality control checks. Then they've got to box them, ship them to dealers. It's a process. And folks, I don't know what to say. I mean, Sightmark they've upheld their end of the deal. I mean, I don't want anybody to think I'm blaming them. I'm not. They've been really pretty much right on time with what they've said throughout this whole thing. And it's September, and they say they're on the way. I trust them. I believe they're going to be here. But I don't know. There's nothing we can do. I'm just getting so many phone calls and emails, and I know there's guys that have been on my list since May. I get it, and we're getting, and it's just like, hey, we're waiting, and it's not Sightmark's fault. It's just the way. And I'm going to say this. None of us like to wait. I'm the same way, especially when it's a cool new toy. It's night vision. It's, man, we want it, and we wanted it yesterday, and the waiting is terrible. And the longer we wait, it just seems like it's just taking forever. But we're in a day and age where it's instant gratification, and we don't have to wait on anything. And it's people. A lot of people don't understand that. They're like, "What do you mean? Just get them here. Just make them." Just have them tomorrow. Like, it's not that easy. This is just this industry. Anybody that's been around the night vision and thermal industry very long knows that supply and demand and manufacturing, and it's an interesting industry. So all I can say is they're coming. They're still saying the end of the month. I haven't, I don't know where they're at right now, but they're supposedly on the way, and hopefully it won't be long. So just hang tight, folks, and everybody should be getting them hopefully at the end of this month.
All right.
Which is September, by the way.
Exactly. So if you're listening or watching this September 2019, they're coming. The man says it. They're coming.
Well,
so.
Sightmark says it. I'm repeating what Sightmark says. No, they're coming, and we'll be here when they get here. It's kind of like Santa Claus.
All right. Well, stay tuned to the podcast, because I know that when they come in, we'll be throwing a party, and we're going to have a lot of happy customers when those scopes come in. But thank you all for checking out the show today. Please go check out, like I said, outdoorlegacygear.com. You can give Jason a call if you want to purchase a night vision or thermal optic, 877-350-1818. You can also find Jason on Instagram, on Facebook at the Outdoor Legacy Gear. And you can find me on Instagram at HansETX or YouTube, HansETX. I've been doing a bunch of Thermion work, been showing some hog drops and coyote drops with the Thermion XP50. And I'll be reviewing Jason, I'll be reviewing that XM50 Thermion pretty soon. So we'll be showing some video with that as well on the HansETX YouTube channel. But thank you all for joining us this week for another edition, episode 71 of the Late Night Vision Show. Y'all stay safe in the fields. Keep making them bacon pancakes, and we'll see y'all next Thursday.